poor girl begged a millionaire to sleep in a doghouse. His answer shocked everyone. The rain fell like needles against the cracked pavement of San Francisco's forgotten district, where broken streetlights cast more shadows than light. Through the downpour, a small figure moved between the dumpsters behind an abandoned restaurant, her tiny hands searching through wet cardboard boxes for anything that might keep her alive another day. Maya was only 8 years old, but hunger had already taught her lessons that most adults never learn. Her stomach twisted with emptiness as she clutched a torn teddy bear against her chest, its one remaining eye staring blankly at the storm clouds above. She had been running for 3 days now, ever since the men at the shelter had tried to grab her, their rough hands reaching for her while the other children slept. The streets were dangerous, but at least here she could run. She could hide. She could choose her own corners to curl up in when the world became too heavy to bear. Thunder cracked overhead like the world splitting in two, and Maya pressed herself against a brick wall trying to become invisible. Her thin dress, once yellow with tiny flowers, now hung on her small frame like a gray rag, soaked through and offering no protection from the October cold. She had learned to count the seconds between lightning and thunder, a game her mother had taught her before the accident, before everything changed. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. The storm was getting closer. Through the sheets of rain, she could see the lights of the wealthy neighborhood on the hill, where houses stood like castles behind iron gates, where people never worried about their next meal or where they would sleep. She had walked past those gates many times, watching families through windows, seeing children her age playing with toys she could only dream about. Tonight, desperation drove her feet toward those lights, toward a hope she couldn't name but couldn't ignore. Marcus Blackwood sat alone in his massive study, surrounded by monitors showing stock prices and international markets that never slept. At 38, he had built an empire from nothing, turning a small tech startup into a billion-dollar corporation that spanned 3 continents. Success had given him everything money could buy: a mansion with 16 rooms, cars he never drove, art he never looked at, and a loneliness so deep it felt like drowning in silk sheets. His phone buzzed with messages from business partners, from people who wanted his money, his influence, his time, but never him. The storm outside matched the turmoil in his chest, a restlessness that no amount of success could quiet. He poured another glass of whiskey, the amber liquid catching the light from his desk lamp, and wondered when exactly he had stopped feeling anything at all. The house around him was perfect, pristine, and utterly empty, like a museum after closing time. Through his window, Marcus noticed movement near his front gate, a shadow too small to be an adult, too deliberate to be an animal. He stood, setting down his glass, and walked to the window for a better look. In the security camera feed on his tablet, he saw her clearly. A child, soaked to the bone, standing at his gate with her hand raised as if to knock on iron bars. Something in her posture, the way she held herself despite being so small, made him pause. He had seen desperation before in boardrooms, in negotiations, but this was different. This was survival stripped of all pretense. He grabbed an umbrella and walked out into the storm, his expensive shoes splashing through puddles he usually had his driver navigate around. As he approached the gate, the child stepped back, fear flashing across her face. "Please don't call the police," she said, her voice barely audible above the rain. "I'm not stealing anything. I just wanted to ask..." "Ask what?" Marcus said, his voice gentler than he expected. The child looked up at him, and in the harsh security light he could see her clearly. Hollow cheeks, eyes too old for her face, clothes that might have been white once but were now the color of the streets. "I saw you have a doghouse in your backyard," she whispered, pointing through the bars to where his neighbor's German shepherd usually stayed when they traveled. Could I sleep there tonight? Just until the storm stops? I promise I'll be quiet. I won't bother anyone. The dog isn't even there." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. A child, asking to sleep in a doghouse, grateful for even that small mercy. He stood frozen, rain running down his face, unable to process what he was hearing. In all his years of business, of making deals worth millions, no one had ever asked him for so little while needing so much. "What's your name?" he asked, his voice thick with an emotion he couldn't name. Maya, she said, clutching her teddy bear tighter. I'm really quiet, mister. You won't even know I'm there. I can leave before the sun comes up. Marcus felt something crack inside his chest, a wall he had built so carefully over years of focusing only on success. Maya, he repeated, opening the gate with his remote. You're not sleeping in a doghouse. Not tonight, not ever. Her eyes widened with fear rather than relief. I don't want trouble. I don't need anything fancy. The doghouse is fine, really. But Marcus was already holding the umbrella over her small form, guiding her toward the front door. When was the last time you ate? He asked. She didn't answer, but the way her eyes darted away told him everything. Inside the mansion, Maya stood dripping on the marble floor, her eyes taking in the chandeliers, the paintings, the staircase that curved up into darkness. She had never seen anything like it, not even in the picture books at the library where she sometimes hid during the day. Marcus disappeared and returned with towels, soft and warm from a dryer she could hear humming somewhere in the house. The bathroom is through there, he said, pointing to a door. Take a hot shower. I'll find you some dry clothes. She hesitated, her fingers gripping the towels. Why are you being nice to me? She asked. People aren't usually nice without wanting something. The question hung in the air between them, and Marcus realized he didn't have an answer. Why was he being nice? Was it pity? Guilt? Or was it something else? Something about the way she had asked for so little, expected even less. While Maya showered, Marcus stood in his kitchen, a room designed by a famous chef he had hired but never cooked with, trying to remember how to make something simple. He settled on grilled cheese and tomato soup, foods from his own childhood, before money had complicated everything. The smell filled the kitchen, warm and inviting, so different from the carefully planned meals his housekeeper usually left for him. When Maya emerged, wearing one of his t-shirts that hung to her knees, her wet hair combed back, she looked even younger, more vulnerable. She sat at the massive dining table, her feet swinging above the floor, and ate slowly, carefully, as if she was afraid the food might disappear. This is really good, she said between bites, and Marcus found himself smiling for the first time in months. Thank you, mister. Call me Marcus, he said, sitting across from her. And you're welcome. After dinner, he showed her to a guest room, watching as her eyes grew wide at the sight of the bed, the clean sheets, the stuffed animals his interior decorator had placed there for aesthetics. This is too much, she whispered. I can't, but Marcus was already pulling back the covers, making the bed ready. Sleep, he said. We'll figure everything else out tomorrow. She climbed into the bed, disappearing into the pillows, still clutching her old teddy bear despite the new ones surrounding her. Marcus, she said as he turned to leave. Yeah? Nobody's ever been this kind to me. Not since my mom died. The words hung in the air, heavy with loss and loneliness. Marcus stood in the doorway, backlit by the hallway light. Well, that changes now, he said. Get some rest, Maya. You're safe here. But safety, Marcus would soon learn, was more complicated than locked doors and high walls. The next morning brought challenges he hadn't anticipated. Maya woke screaming from nightmares, thrashing in the sheets, calling for her mother. Marcus found himself sitting on the edge of her bed at 3 a.m, not knowing what to say but staying anyway, his presence the only comfort he could offer. She told him fragments of her story between sobs. The car accident that took her mother, the foster homes that treated her like a paycheck, the streets that had become her only option. They said I was difficult, she whispered. That I didn't adjust well? But how do you adjust to losing everything? Marcus had no answer, but he held her hand, this small, brave child who had survived more than most adults could imagine. The next few days fell into an unexpected rhythm. Marcus canceled meetings, something he had never done, to take Maya shopping for clothes. He watched her touch fabrics carefully, checking price tags with worry in her eyes. Get whatever you want, he told her, but she only picked the cheapest items until he started choosing for her, things that fit, that were warm, that made her smile despite herself. They ate meals together, and Marcus found himself looking forward to her stories, her questions about his work, her wonder at simple things like the dishwasher or the television that responded to voice commands. She was brilliant, he realized, quick to understand concepts, eager to learn. "Did you go to school?" he asked one evening. "Sometimes," she said. "When I could. I liked reading the most. Books don't care if your clothes are dirty or if you don't have a lunch." But the peace couldn't last. On the fourth day, Marcus received a call from his head of security. "Sir, there are some men asking about a girl. They say she stole from them, that they're looking for her." Marcus felt ice in his veins. "What kind of men?" "The kind we usually call the police about, sir. But they seem to know she's here." That evening, Marcus sat Maya down, his face serious. "Maya, some people are looking for you. They say you stole from them." Her face went pale, tears immediately filling her eyes. "I took some bread," she whispered, "from their delivery truck. I was so hungry, and they threw out so much food anyway. But they caught me, and they said I had to work for them to pay it back. Bad things, Marcus. Things kids shouldn't do." The fear in her voice made Marcus's hands clench into fists. "They're not taking you anywhere," he said firmly. "But we need to be smart about this." The confrontation came sooner than expected. The next morning, 3 men stood at Marcus's gate, their intentions clear in their aggressive postures. Marcus met them with his lawyer and his security team, but the men weren't impressed. "She owes us," the largest one said, a bearded man with scars on his knuckles. "Either she comes with us or you pay her debt. $50,000. It was extortion, plain and simple, but they had calculated correctly that Marcus would pay to protect Maya. What they hadn't calculated was Marcus's influence. While his lawyer kept them talking, Marcus made calls to contacts in the district attorney's office, to journalists who owed him favors, to people who could make problems disappear or appear, depending on what was needed. "Here's what's going to happen," Marcus said, stepping forward. "You're going to leave, and you're never going to come near Maya again. Or tomorrow, your faces will be on every news channel in the city, wanted for child trafficking." The bearded man laughed, but it was nervous now. "You think your money makes you untouchable?" "No," Marcus said. "But it makes you visible. Every crime you've committed, every child you've hurt, all of it comes to light. I've already had my people looking into you. Tom Bradley, age 34, 2 arrests for assault, currently on parole." The man's face went white. "Yeah, I know who you are. All of you. And if you don't leave now, everyone else will too." The men exchanged glances, calculating odds, weighing risks. Finally, the bearded man spit on the ground. "This isn't over," he said, but they left, and Marcus knew they wouldn't be back. Not with what he had on them, not with the spotlight he could shine on their operations. That night, Maya cried in his arms, not from fear, but from relief. "No one ever fought for me before," she said. "No one ever thought I was worth protecting." Marcus held her tighter, this small warrior who had been fighting alone for so long. "You're worth everything," he said, and meant it. The next weeks were a blur of legal procedures. Marcus hired the best family lawyer in the state, began the process of becoming Maya's legal guardian. It wasn't easy. There were questions about his single status, his work schedule, his lack of experience with children, but Maya herself was his strongest advocate. When the social worker interviewed her, she spoke with such conviction about feeling safe for the first time, about having someone who saw her as more than a problem to be solved, that even the skeptical judge was moved. Marcus's life changed in ways he hadn't expected. His house, once a monument to his success, became a home. Maya's drawings covered his refrigerator. Her laughter echoed through halls that had known only silence. He learned to braid hair from YouTube videos, to check for monsters under beds, to read stories with different voices for each character. His business partners were shocked when he started leaving meetings at 6 to have dinner with Maya, when he turned down international trips that would keep him away too long. "You've gone soft, Blackwood," one of them said. "No," Marcus replied. "I've gone human." The transformation wasn't just in him. Maya bloomed like a flower finally given sunlight. She started school, making friends cautiously at first, then with growing confidence. Her teachers were amazed at her intelligence, her resilience, her empathy for other struggling children. But the biggest change came 6 months later, on a rainy night much like the one when they first met. Maya had been quiet all day, and Marcus could tell something was weighing on her. Finally, at bedtime, she spoke. "Marcus, can I ask you something?" "Anything," he said, sitting on her bed. "Do you ever regret it? Taking me in? I know I've made your life complicated." Marcus looked at this child who had given him more than she could ever know. "Maya, before you came, I had everything and felt nothing. I was successful but not alive. You didn't complicate my life, you gave me one." She smiled, that rare, genuine smile that transformed her whole face. "Can I tell you a secret?" she asked. "Always." "Sometimes I thank the storm," she whispered, "for bringing me to your gate. Because even though I asked for a doghouse, I found a dad." The word hung between them, precious and fragile. Marcus had been waiting, hoping, but never pushing for it. Is that okay?" Maya asked, suddenly uncertain. "That I call you Dad?" Marcus pulled her into a hug, his eyes burning with tears he didn't try to hide. "It's more than okay," he said. "It's perfect." The adoption was finalized on a sunny Tuesday in September. Maya wore a blue dress she had picked out herself, with tiny silver stars that caught the light. Marcus wore his best suit. But what made him look different was the joy on his face, a lightness that his colleagues had never seen. When the judge made it official, when Maya became Maya Blackwood, the courtroom erupted in applause. Even the usually stoic bailiff was wiping his eyes. But Marcus and Maya's story didn't end with their own happiness. Maya never forgot the children still on the streets, still asking for doghouses instead of homes. "We have to help them," she told Marcus one evening, her voice fierce with determination. "We have so much, and they have so little." Together they founded the Maya Foundation, converting one of Marcus's unused properties into a shelter for homeless children. But it wasn't just a shelter, it was a home, with tutors, counselors, and, most importantly, people who saw each child as valuable, worthy of love and protection. Maya insisted on being involved, visiting every week, reading to the younger children, helping with homework, being the proof that life could get better. The first child they housed was a boy named David, 7 years old, found sleeping in a cardboard box behind a grocery store. When Marcus and Maya brought him to the shelter, he looked around in wonder, much like Maya had that first night. "Is this real?" he asked. Maya knelt beside him, taking his small hand in hers. "It's real," she said. "And you're safe now. I promise." Watching her comfort David, Marcus saw the cycle of kindness continuing, spreading outward like ripples in a pond. The girl who had begged to sleep in a doghouse was now opening doors for others, proving that sometimes the smallest acts of compassion can change the world. Years passed, and the foundation grew. Marcus's business success meant nothing compared to the success of watching children find homes, families, futures they never thought possible. Maya grew into a remarkable young woman, graduating high school as valedictorian, her speech bringing the entire auditorium to tears as she talked about second chances, about the power of someone believing in you when you can't believe in yourself. "Someone once told me I was worth everything," she said, looking directly at Marcus in the front row. "And that changed everything." She went to college, studying social work and business, determined to expand the foundation to reach more children, to make sure no child ever had to beg for shelter again. Marcus aged gracefully, his hair going silver, laugh lines deepening around his eyes that had learned to truly see. His office walls, once covered with business awards and stock certificates, now displayed Maya's artwork, photos from foundation events, letters from children whose lives had been transformed. His colleagues no longer recognized the cold, calculating businessman he had been. In his place stood a man who understood that true wealth wasn't measured in dollars but in the lives you touch, the love you give and receive. "You've lost your edge, Blackwood," a rival once taunted. "No," Marcus replied, looking at a photo of Maya at her college graduation. "I found my heart." The Foundation's 10th anniversary gala was held in the ballroom of the city's finest hotel. Hundreds of supporters gathered, people who had been moved by the story of a girl and a millionaire who had saved each other. Maya, now 28, stood at the podium, poised and confident. But Marcus could still see the 8-year-old girl in her eyes, that mixture of strength and vulnerability that had captured his heart. 10 years ago, a storm brought me to a stranger's gate, she began. I asked for permission to sleep in a doghouse. Instead, I found a father, a home, a future I never dared dream of. But more than that, I found proof that kindness exists, that love doesn't require blood, only choice. She called Marcus to the stage and he joined her, their hands clasped. This man, Maya continued, taught me that sometimes the things we think we need the least, interruptions to our routine, complications to our plans, turn out to be exactly what we need the most. He was a millionaire who thought he had everything. I was a poor girl who had nothing. But the truth is, we were both poor in different ways, and we made each other rich. The room was silent, many wiping away tears. Tonight, we announced the expansion of the Maya Foundation to 10 new cities, Maya said, because every child deserves what I received that night. Not just shelter, but hope. Not just safety, but love. Not just survival, but the chance to thrive. As the crowd erupted in applause, Marcus thought about that rainy night, about the moment that had changed everything. How different his life would have been if he had turned Maya away, if he had chosen comfort over compassion, isolation over connection. She had asked for so little. Just a doghouse, just a dry place to sleep. But in opening his door, he had opened his heart, and that had made all the difference. The storm that brought Maya to him had been the greatest gift of his life. Washing away the man he had been and revealing the man he was meant to be. The evening continued with testimonies from children the foundation had helped. Each story was unique but carried the same thread. A child in desperate circumstances, asking for the minimum, receiving so much more. There was Sarah, now a doctor, who had been sleeping in hospital waiting rooms. James, becoming a teacher, who had lived in an abandoned school bus. Emma, studying law, who had hidden in library stacks. Each of them spoke about the moment someone saw them, truly saw them, and decided they were worth saving. Maya taught us that, Sarah said, that we weren't problems to be solved, but people to be loved. As the gala wound down, Marcus found himself on the balcony, looking out at the city lights. Maya joined him, still in her elegant gown but with her shoes off, a reminder of the practical girl she had always been. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if I hadn't come to your gate that night?" she asked. Marcus considered the question. "I try not to," he said honestly. "It's too painful to imagine. I would have remained successful and empty. You would have remained brave and alone. We both would have survived, but neither of us would have lived." Maya leaned against his shoulder, this daughter he had chosen, who had chosen him in return. "Thank you," she said simply, "for seeing past the dirty clothes and the desperate request, for seeing me." "Thank you," Marcus replied, "for being brave enough to ask, for teaching me that the things we think make us weak, needing help, showing vulnerability, admitting loneliness, are actually what make us human." They stood together, father and daughter, not by blood but by choice, looking out at a city full of children who still needed what they had found in each other. The work wasn't done, would never be done, but that was okay. Each child helped was a victory. Each life changed a miracle. The poor girl who had begged a millionaire to sleep in a doghouse had become a woman dedicating her life to ensuring no child would ever have to beg again. Months later, a documentary crew came to film their story. They interviewed Marcus in his office, now warm with personal touches, photos of Maya at every age covering his desk. "People call you a hero," the interviewer said. "How do you respond to that?" Marcus shook his head. "I'm not a hero. Maya is. She survived what would break most adults. She maintained her humanity, her capacity for trust and love, despite every reason not to. I just opened a door. She's the one who walked through it and changed both our lives. They interviewed Maya at the foundation, surrounded by children doing homework, laughing, being kids. "Your story has inspired thousands," the interviewer said. "What do you want people to take from it?" Maya thought carefully. "That every person you pass on the street, every child you see struggling, has a story, has potential, has worth. We get so caught up in our own lives, our own problems, that we forget to see each other. But sometimes, all it takes is one person saying yes instead of no, opening a door instead of closing it, to change everything." Marcus didn't just save me that night. He showed me that I was worth saving, and every child deserves to know that feeling. The documentary ended with footage from that first security camera, a small girl at a gate in the rain, asking for almost nothing, receiving everything. It became the most watched documentary of the year, sparking movements in cities across the country, inspiring other wealthy individuals to look beyond their gates, to see the Mayas standing in their own storms. But for Marcus and Maya, fame was never the point. They continued their work quietly, steadily, one child at a time. Maya married a fellow social worker, a kind man named James who understood her mission, who joined it wholeheartedly. When she told Marcus she was pregnant, he cried, thinking of the grandchild who would grow up surrounded by love, never knowing the desperation that had marked Maya's early years. "What if it's a girl?" Maya asked. "What would you want me to tell her about us?" Marcus smiled. "Tell her that once upon a time, a brave little girl asked a lonely man for shelter in a storm. Tell her that question changed 2 lives, then dozens, then hundreds. Tell her that love doesn't always look like what we expect, that family isn't always what we're born into, but sometimes what we choose. And tell her that her mother is proof that no beginning, no matter how difficult, determines your ending." When the baby was born, a healthy girl with Maya's eyes and stubborn chin, they named her Hope. It seemed fitting, Marcus thought, holding his granddaughter for the first time. Hope was what Maya had given him that night, even if neither of them had known it. Hope that connection was possible, that isolation wasn't permanent, that love could find you even when you weren't looking for it. As he looked at this new life, this continuation of their unlikely family, he thought about cycles, of poverty, of loneliness, of pain, and how they had broken them, replacing them with cycles of love, generosity, and possibility. The years continued to pass, with their steady rhythm of challenges and triumphs. The foundation faced funding crises, political opposition, the endless complexity of trying to help children trapped in systemic poverty. But Maya and Marcus faced each challenge together, their bond unshakable. When Marcus was diagnosed with cancer at 70, Maya took leave from the foundation to care for him, reversing their roles with the same fierce devotion he had shown her. "I'm not going anywhere," she told him, holding his hand during chemotherapy. "You stayed by my bed when I had nightmares. Now it's my turn." He recovered, slowly but surely, motivated by the work still to be done, the grandchildren still to be spoiled, the life still to be lived. On his 75th birthday, the foundation threw a surprise party. The ballroom was filled not with business associates or society figures, but with the children they had helped over the years. Now adults, they came from across the country to thank the man who had started it all by saying yes to one desperate request. Each one shared a memory, a moment when they had felt seen, valued, loved. Marcus sat in the center of it all, Maya by his side, overwhelmed by the tangible proof of what one act of kindness could become. "You did this," Maya whispered to him. "We did this," he corrected. "None of it happens without you, without that brave little girl who changed my life." As the party continued around them, Marcus thought about legacy. His business empire, once the center of his existence, would fade. His money would eventually run out. But these lives changed, this love multiplied, this proof that compassion could overcome circumstance, this would continue long after he was gone. Maya squeezed his hand and he squeezed back, this language they had developed over the years, wordless but profound. The poor girl who had begged to sleep in a doghouse and the millionaire who had offered his home had become something neither could have imagined. A family that extended far beyond blood, a force for change that rippled outward in ways they would never fully know. The story of Maya and Marcus spread far beyond their city, inspiring legislation to protect homeless children, funding for shelters and programs, a shift in how society saw its most vulnerable members. Universities studied their model, governments consulted their expertise, but at its heart, the message was simple. See the person, not the problem. Choose love over fear. Open doors instead of closing them. Maya, now director of the foundation, spoke at conferences and seminars, but she always began the same way. I want to tell you about a stormy night, a desperate question, and a man who could have said no but chose to say yes. As this story draws to a close, think about the moments in your own life when you've had the chance to say yes or no to someone in need. Think about the doors you've opened or closed, the hands you've extended or withheld. Maya and Marcus remind us that heroism isn't always grand gestures. Sometimes it's as simple as seeing someone in the rain and inviting them in. Their story, which began with such a humble request, a poor girl begging a millionaire to sleep in a doghouse, became a testament to the transformative power of compassion. His answer didn't just shock everyone. It changed the world, one child at a time. Remember, we all have the power to be someone's Marcus, to be the person who says yes when the world has said no. And, perhaps more importantly, we must remember to be like Maya, brave enough to ask for help, resilient enough to trust again, generous enough to pass on the kindness we receive. Because that's how the world changes. Not all at once, but one door opening, one hand extended, one child saved, one heart at a time. The storm that brought them together became the foundation for countless sunny days in countless lives. And it all started with a question in the rain and an answer that shocked everyone but saved two souls who didn't even know they needed saving.